Okay, how's it going, everybody? I hope you're all doing well. Okay, so in this episode, I thought I'd try to talk about something that might sound a bit strange, namely Heidegger's view on the typewriter. Now, it might not seem like it, but give it a chance. It's pretty interesting stuff. Okay, so let's just jump right into it. Okay, well, let's start with handwriting first. So, for Heidegger, there's an individuality of handwriting, and therefore there's an authenticity to it, something that typewriting just doesn't have. In a way, you might say that handwriting is almost like a kind of personal signature. Or to put it another way, maybe, handwriting refers to an individual who's non-substitutable. But according to Heidegger, that's not the way it is for typewriting. No, in typewriting, every person looks the same, he says. Everybody's writing is identical. It's uniform. And so because of this, character is concealed and personality has completely disappeared. Actually, Heidegger even says that when it comes to typewriting, you can't even tell if a real person stands behind it. Anyway, for Heidegger, all this is not just a disturbing trend or consequence of typewriters, but it's a disturbing trend of modern technology in general. Namely, what modern technology does is it flattens out or it homogenizes human beings. Just as the typewritten word makes one person's writing indistinguishable from another's, technologies of all sorts obscure human differences and even do away with them altogether. Technology, you could say, desubjectifies and ultimately mitigates against what Heidegger would call the fullness of being. Anyway, for him, it's not like this in handwriting. No, in handwriting, our uniqueness and our identity is inscribed in the soft and careful movement of the pen across and into the paper. So what's left there is a kind of a personal trace or testament. In other words, we've personally transferred or etched ourselves and our spirit into the paper. In some sense, you might say that our relationship to our words in that case is embodied. I don't know, but I think maybe Nietzsche alluded to something like this when he makes Zarathustra say, "Of all that is written, I love only what a person has written with his blood. Write with blood, and you will find that blood is spirit." Actually, speaking of Nietzsche, he says something else that's pretty interesting about one of the consequences of writing in type. He says it leaves no mark of our mistakes, and so of our humanity. I mean, think about electronic text, for example. Unlike its archaic handwritten counterpart, it leaves absolutely no mark. For example, when we text something, we might change it a dozen times, but there's no record left of that, is there? Now, compare that to written works, where words are crossed out or scribbled in the margins. In other words, there's a visual record of our humanity and some evidence of a creative process. Anyway, so back to Heidegger. So I think part of Heidegger's concern with typewriting or word processing is that it removes the work of our hands. Now, that might seem silly, but actually, for Heidegger, our hands are very important. They're who we are. They're what makes us human. They're the conduit to the world. They connect us to the earth. Actually, speaking of this connection, you might say that our hands have a kind of special access to a realm of being, a primordial one that precedes all objectification and classification and calculation. Well, okay, so what Heidegger thinks is that the typewriter tears writing from our hands. Or, as he himself says, it deprives the hand of its rank. It does this by placing this clunky mechanized object between our hands and the material of inscription on which the words end up. Now, what's the result of this? Well, what was once done in the realm of the hand, real handiwork, has now ceded to a mechanized process with its intrusive and rapid staccato sound, a process that seeks, above all, expediency and automation and homogenization. So words are no longer the genuine handiwork of our hands. No, they're the result of machine work. Words no longer denote human creation. Now this is the shrinking of being, Heidegger might say. It's to have enclosed our outlook to one of mechanization and efficiency. And well, for him, if you mechanize the words, you mechanize us. Actually, you know what? Here I'm reminded of Nietzsche once again. So this is really interesting. So I think that what happened is that near the end of his creative life, Nietzsche started to go blind. And so he decided to turn to a kind of typewriter, one of those early ball-shaped ones. Now, one of the things he noticed was that his writing had slightly changed now that he was using this thing. For example, one of the things that seems to have changed is that he moved away from arguments and more towards aphorisms. And actually, he himself said something revealing about all of this. What he said was that our writing equipment takes part in the forming of our thoughts. Now, that's interesting, because what he seems to be suggesting is that our writing medium partly determines not just how, but what we write. That's to say that our words and our thoughts are going to be partly determined by the horizon of possibilities or impossibilities that the typewriter affords us. Now, actually, this gets us back to Heidegger, because it seems to me that Heidegger's concern with the typewriter or the word processor is really a larger concern about our growing technological outlook or attitude towards things. The degradation of words through a mechanized process, their reduction to functionality and efficiency and homogenization is really part of a larger technological attitude that sees everything in the world as raw material or pieces of inventory to be exploited. The flattening of words is just another part of the flattening and the streamlining of the world. Now, the really scary thing about this technological outlook, Heidegger thinks, is that it's eclipsed all other ways of seeing things. So much so, in fact, that we've forgotten that it's only one way of seeing things, and that others do exist out there. But to see those other ways, to retrieve different ways of thinking and expressing ourselves, the first thing we need to do is to get our hands back. Bye for now.